My friend and I have talked about section hiking the Appalachian Trail for years. Since we both work full-time, neither of us can do the AT through hike, which is where you hike from the Appalachian Trail starting point in northern Georgia all the way up through Maine, which typically takes 4 to 6 months. So instead, we decided to hike over a long weekend. Earlier this winter, we finally set a date and went about planning our route. We decided to start in Shenandoah National Park, since it's only a couple hours drive from where we live in the DC area. Shenandoah National Park sits in the Blue Ridge Mountains on the western side of Virginia. On Thursday night, we drove to a place called Big Meadows, which has a campground, visitor center, and a small gift shop and restaurant. We left our cars in the parking lot after making sure we could with the visitor center. Then we set off with our packs after dinner and camped in the forest at the edge of the meadow, across the road from the visitor center. This was my first time backcountry or wild camping in Virginia, so it was a learning experience. Luckily, my friend has section hiked the AT in Georgia and knew quite a bit. I did a lot of forced backpacking as a kid, including completing the absolutely miserable Chilkoot Trail in Alaska and Canada, but my parents always handled the logistics. A new regulation in Shenandoah National Park requires permits for backcountry camping, so I had to apply for one of those. It did ask for $35 as a fee, but then it gave no option to pay, so I just printed it out and got the permit for free. We set up our gear just out of sight in the tree line, a short way from a fire road. I'm embarrassed to admit that I did not do as much prepping for this trip as I had planned, as life got super busy beforehand, and I had only purchased the tent a month before and set it up once in my living room. Yeah, pretty embarrassed about that. So I struggled a little bit to set it up, but luckily it's pretty simple and became easier the following nights. It's a Big Agnes ultralight 2-person tent that my brother recommended. He's a serious climber in the Pacific Northwest. And I bought the tent on sale along with my ultralight sleeping pad, which I slept really well on. I will link both items below. They're from REI. I do not regret buying these at all. Brought me a lot of comfort, and I was able to sleep really well on 2 of the 3 nights, whereas the last time I went backpacking on Gilbert Peak, I'll put that video here, I did not sleep well because I was so cold and uncomfortable. So these items were definitely worth the money. The tent weighs 2 pounds 3 ounces and it is 28 square feet. It is normally $500. I got it on sale for $300 and now it is on sale for $270, which is infuriating. REI is currently having a 4th of July sale, ends on the 4th of July, so by the time this video comes out, that'll be over. They apparently have 3 sales a year and not 2. If there's anything else I'm missing, comment down below. They have one in March, and then they have one right before Memorial Day in May, which is when I got my tent, and then apparently now they're having the 4th of July sale. When I bought my tent in May, I also bought a Neo Air X-Lite NXT sleeping pad that my brother recommended. It has an R value of 6, so I'll stay nice and insulated on cold nights, which is really what I wanted. I wanted to sleep in peace and be comfortable and not have the same experience I had on Gilbert Peak. That was just an absolute nightmare for 2 nights. I did pay a little bit of a chunk of change for this, and I got an extra large one because I turn over a lot in my sleep. I'm glad I got the 2-person because I could just put my pack inside and it wouldn't get rained on and get all wet. And if another friend comes along that doesn't have a tent or hammock, they can also join me inside. The tent has already paid for itself because I'm bringing it on several trips this summer instead of staying in hotels. It was so relaxing to just sleep in the wilderness underneath the stars and not wake up to your neighbor blasting music or banging around pots and pans or slamming their car doors as they would in a regular campground. It was so easy to fall asleep because I knew my friend was right there, so I wasn't scared. And then I just put one foam earplug in one ear and then pressed my other ear down to my pillow. This sleeping pad was super easy to just deflate. You just unplug it and squish it down. This 3-day backpacking trip was a steep learning curve for me. I definitely overpacked my backpack or rucksack, which I do in my suitcases for normal travel and just for everything in general. So it's a few days later when I'm editing this and I am auditing my backpack, trying to get the base weight down to 16 pounds. It's at about 17 or 18 pounds right now, and I'm just really re-evaluating what I actually need. The base weight of my pack when I started the trip was about 30 pounds, and I filled my camelback full of water, meaning it had 3 liters of water in it, so it was close to about 38 to 40 pounds, which is way too heavy. The recommended amount of water you're supposed to carry on the trail is apparently 1 liter, especially if you can get to a spring or water source within the day. Packing so much extra weight definitely had a negative effect on me. I got blisters on every toe, which I don't think has ever happened to me even when I was ruck marching in the army, which is kind of like backpacking, but it's more fast-paced and usually on flat ground. And then my knees really started hurting, especially going downhill. We stopped for lunch at the Rock Spring Hut. There's a shelter and a spring, which is really convenient. There's also a cabin you can rent. I'll post that link down below. We both brought smart straws, which are filters. I used one on Gilbert Peak, and we used them in the next several springs. This was my second time using the jet foil. I really like it. It's pretty convenient, and you can store the fuel canister and the burner inside of it. I brought 2 dry fit shirts for this trip since cotton kills. I had a couple leftover dry fit shirts from 5Ks that I'd done in the past. This was the shelter. I thought it would be cool to stay in a shelter, but my friend said that she's heard horror stories about mice and snakes in them. I will tell a story later about a mouse in a shelter.
Yeah. I've never slept in one. It's got like, looks like it's got 3 bunk beds.
Oh, nice.
And fireplace is right here.
Nice.
I mean, this is nice. We should have came down here and ate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's probably a lot of mice.
We made it to Skyland for the night, which was about 8 miles from Big Meadows. I was really struggling by this point. Pack was way too heavy. So we decided to set up camp kind of across the road from the resort. There's a bunch of cabins. My husband and I actually stayed here for our anniversary a few years ago. 1010 would not recommend. The cabins are like $250 a night, and they're just absolute garbage. Mouse actually got into our cabin that night and ate a bunch of our food. I slept really well this second night, and I was really glad I put my rainfly on. My friend also put her pack underneath the rainfly in case it rained, and it kind of did. So I wasn't sure how to do a bear bag since my dad had always taken care of this on backpacking trips, and I watched a video a few days before we left. So I just used a carabiner plastic bag with a rock inside that I picked up at the campsite, and then 550 cord. So for day 2, we planned on hiking from Skyland to Bird's Nest Shelter number 3, which was about 6 miles, but ended up being 7 because we did a little bit of rerouting through Skyland. We stopped at the Skyland Lodge to recharge some batteries and to fill up our water. Shenandoah National Park is kind of known for this along the AT. There's just numerous spots to go into a restaurant, at the lodge, go to the bathroom, fill up on water, etc. You're never really that far from civilization in Shenandoah National Park. Random tidbit, but I had my hair professionally braided at a salon before going on the trail. I cannot French braid that well enough to have my hair stay in place, and I knew I would not be showering for this whole time. So this is the Stony Man Trail. I've been on this trail a million times. It's my favorite hike in Shenandoah. It's super short, only a quarter mile from the trailhead, and in my opinion, it has the best views in the park.
Oh, really?
Close my weight off if I have that big pack.
Yeah, there used to be a pool.
Oh, is this, so this is what you're talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're down there at the bottom. Yeah, they're on the ground.
Oh, are they?
One of them is.
You can probably see them from there, but
Yeah, I'm not gonna risk. Tie my 550 cord to you, so you don't fall.
so it's the parking. So right now we're at 9.363.
The humidity was absolutely suffocating on the second day. We stopped for lunch at the Pinnacles picnic grounds. There were a lot of people from Central Asia who were here barbecuing and having parties and playing really good music.
Lunchtime.
I googled this individual when I got home and found no information, so if you have any idea who this is, comment down below.
Oh yeah.
Part of me's like, shit, if I had
We arrived at bird shelter number 3. It was a terrible night. I started to feel sick that night, and it's a week later, I'm still sick. I had trouble sleeping, didn't get to sleep till like 11:30, midnight. There were deer fighting in the bushes around us and crashing around. And then there was a thunderstorm. It woke us up about 4:30. There was lightning, so I got out of my tent and woke up my friend in her hammock right behind me, and we ran into the picnic shelter. The evening before, we had met through hiker Tigger, who shared some red wine with us, and through hiker Multifunction, as well as section hiker Icon. She introduced me to some lightweight gaiters that keep the ticks out, So thank you for that. They're called Dirty Girl Gaiters. I'll link them down below. Multifunction caught up with us the next day because he was pretty fast. And he told us when he was asleep in the shelter, a mouse fell down from the rafters onto his head and scurried down into his sleeping bag and was running around at his feet. So I am never sleeping in a shelter. My brother also told me a similar story about his one time in a shelter during a thunderstorm. So I think I'll stick to my tent. It'll keep the ticks out too. The spring was 0.4 miles away down this service road that was really overgrown. It was going downhill and my knees hurt really bad. Kind of far for a spring, but this was my first time actually filtering water with the smart straw, so I felt super accomplished. Thanks to my friend, whose trail name is Goldilocks, for showing me how to do this.
And there's water there? Yeah, there's a couple of hand.
So my friend ordered us a shuttle to pick us up at the Panorama Parking Lot just south of Thornton Gap. We didn't quite make it to Elk Swallow where her car was parked. My car was parked at Big Meadows, so we just shuttled from the Panorama Parking Lot to her car at Elk Swallow, but we had to be at the Panorama Parking Lot by 10 a.m. We tried to set out at 6 a.m. to make it there within 3 hours since we were at a 1 mile an hour pace. We ended up making it in 90 minutes, so that was really good. We left at about 6:15 from the shelter. We arrived at the Panorama Parking Lot, which is also the Mary's Rock Trailhead, with about an hour and a half to spare, so we ate breakfast, made some coffee, went to the bathroom, and then washed our faces in the sink. We also ran into Through Hiker Multifunction. When we got back to Big Meadow Campground, there were paid showers that you could use, 10 minutes for $5, coins only, and there's a hiker box there, so we washed up. And then afterward, we celebrated by going to Rappahannock Pizza Kitchen in Sperryville. It's a favorite of mine after hikes in Shenandoah. They've got fantastic pizza. Thanks for watching.